Hi green lovers! Well, it's late August and summer is coming to an end in my Northern California Zone 9B garden, and I'm sitting over here next to my raised beds. You know, things are starting to taper off, and it's time to start putting some of my raised beds to rest and to get them ready for fall planting as well, if that's what I plan to do. And I thought I'd share with you my top 3 ways in which I prepare soil and amend my raised beds and have a wonderful garden for the rest of the growing season and be prepared for the next growing season. The first and probably my favorite method to build soil fast is by digging a hole and burying kitchen scraps. Now, the main thing about this is that your hole should be deep enough, say about a foot deep. Otherwise, little critters come and tend to dig things up. But if you're okay with that, and really I'm okay with it because I bury the scraps far enough from my house that it doesn't really bother me, then go ahead and bury your scraps just all around the garden. This here is a garden bed that I am in the middle of preparing for my fall gardening. Now these will take about maybe 2 to 3 weeks tops to decompose. And I plan to grow in this maybe in about 6 weeks from now. So that is just perfect. Now one thing that I will tell you that could happen, like right here, is when you bury kitchen scraps, seeds will start to grow. So these are all cantaloupe plants that have started volunteering here. Now it's too late in the year for these to grow to full size and to produce cantaloupe, or I might have left them, but I'm going to leave them anyway because they make a great cover crop. And they will keep the soil nice and moist once they grow a little larger and the leaves get a little larger until I'm ready to plant in them. Speaking of cover crops, these are a wonderful addition to your garden every fall, and they create a lot of green mass that you can then work into the upper layers of the soil and really help improve the nutrient value of it. Here's some footage from the cover crops that I took down earlier in the year. Let's take a look. I've got some beautiful cover crops growing in these 3 raised beds, and it is late winter, or feeling like it's going to be spring pretty soon. In fact, my last frost date is the end of February and today is the end of January. So between now and then I need to start doing something about my cover crops, because the idea is that you want all of this wonderful biomass to be incorporated into the soil, into the top layers of soil, and decompose in preparation for your fresh plantings. Now, I made a more in-depth video on cover crops and why you need them in your garden, and I will put a link to that at the end of this video. Now this here has not exactly been cover cropped, it's more been layered with a thick layer of mulch. But I did want to show you what happens when you layer on mulch or cover crops or anything that worms enjoy, is that they do come in large numbers and start to decompose this material. And if I dig in a little bit here, there are plenty of worms, and they are wriggling and rolling all over the place here. So I've got this row cover that I left some of my plants to overwinter underneath. But what I wanted to show you is what is happening under this plastic sheet that I put kind of just to lay all these pots on top of. So as you can see, there are worms all over the place, and this, folks, this is incredibly rich worm casting, 100% worm casting. So if you put any kind of protection layer on your soil, and if you live in a warm climate like I do, the worms will come even during the heart of winter, and they will create wonderful compost for you. Well, looks like I got some potatoes growing from some plant here. So yeah, just look at this incredibly rich worm casting. Covering your soil is so important, folks, whether it be with mulch or even with plain plastic, the black plastic that I showed you with all those earthworms under it. I think it's important to show results as well. I want to show you, in fact, the exact spot where I picked up the plastic and showed you all those worms. Let me show you what's growing there. Okay, so this is the bed that had that black plastic over it, and this is the exact spot that I picked up the plastic and showed you the worms. I've got a volunteer potato plant growing here. It's just one plant, but it comes all the way here, and I've got an Armenian cucumber, a little bit of damage from a leaf miner, but look at this plant, it's going nuts. It's a very young plant. It's less than 2 months old, and it's already producing cucumbers for me. I already harvested one from it, but lots more coming. But mainly wanted to show you how healthy the plants are in this bed. I've got beautiful pepper plants here. Oh, look at the little ladybug. And I've got okra. I harvest okra practically every day from these plants. They just keep producing once they get started. But yeah, these plants are, gosh, about 5 feet tall, I think, and still growing. Some of them are almost my height. And I've got a delicata squash here, and I've got sweet potato. Look how healthy those vines are. Lots and lots of pepper plants. I wanted to show you this pepper. This one is a Mad Hatter pepper. Look how unique that is. Looks like an upside down flower. A very tasty pepper that I'm growing for the first time this year. This is a watermelon plant. Yeah, I use these clamshells. This is a tip for you guys. I've got rodents, and they get to every single melon and every single squash that I have. So the ones that I really do want to protect, like this sugar baby watermelon, I use these clamshells. They actually clip pretty easily. Put a little masking tape there just in case to hold it. This is a suit of armor for it. The critters can't get to it. Oh, look at this pretty blue Christmas pepper. Some nice healthy comfrey growing here. Yeah, so this is the bed that is actually my later season garden in summer. I planted it somewhere in mid-June, all these plants, and they're just absolutely thriving, loving all of that prep that I had done for it, loving all of the worm castings. I have one more bonus tip for you folks, but before that, I would so appreciate it if you're getting value from this video, if you'd give it a big thumbs up, hit that like button, because it really helps it get out to a broader audience. And if you have any tips on how you take care of your soil to keep it living and full of nutrients and really helping those plants produce for you, do leave a comment below. We all know that better soil means better plants, and better plants means better harvests. Now, on to that tip. So I'm sitting here with this really big, heavy, full bucket of worm castings. All of them were created in my worm bin, so I'm really proud of this. It contains food scraps and all kinds of nutrient-dense things that the worms have been breaking up over the past 6 months. But my tip for you is that throughout the growing season, at least once a month, maybe even more, come out to your garden and around your plants, do add some kind of nutrients, whether it be a handful of organic fertilizer, whether it be a handful of worm castings, whether it be a couple of handfuls of compost. Continue to add something to your soil, because your plants are working so hard to produce all of these harvests, and they're taking a lot out of the soil. Let me show you one of the planters that was up to the brim full when I started the gardening season. Now, let me show you how much the level has dropped. Now this planter has several large pepper plants. It also has this beautiful single marigold plant that, look how large it is, and it is a huge pollinator attractor, as well as I do believe it repels pests. It's got Genovese basil, it's got lime basil, all big pollinator attractors, but it's also got these very large pepper plants. This one here is a Mad Hatter pepper. I showed you one of them in another bed. Gosh, I love them so much. And cayenne peppers, these long cayenne peppers. This plant is just loaded. This is a Pekin, a red Pekin pepper, and again, loaded. This here is, I believe, a Scotch Brain super hot pepper. I've got a Carolina Reaper somewhere hidden in here. It's the hottest pepper in the world. Gosh, doesn't that look scary? But my point is that this planter is working really, really hard. And if you take a look at the level of the soil, there's a sweet potato plant growing in here as well. This thing was up to the brimming top. and now it has dropped by at least 8 inches. In fact, it was overheaped when I planted these plants in it, and the soil has compacted a little bit, decomposed a little bit, and then these plants have basically pulled a lot of material into this growth. Even the roots of the plants start to get exposed. So compost is a really good thing to add to your planters and your raised beds, especially around the roots of the plants, because that's where they'll be able to get the nutrients the faster. And also it helps prevent things like root exposure, just like this. So I'm going to put a playlist to how to grow cover crops and everything you need to know about it right here. And on this side, I'm going to put a link to how to amend your beds for immediate use for your fall and winter gardens. Until next time, live green and love your greens.